He thought it would be a quiet birthday, just him, his boy, and a store-bought cake. No big deal, a few candles, a laugh, and another summer night in the neighborhood. But when the doorbell rang, and his neighbor stood there with her daughter and a gift, something felt off. The way she kept checking the street. The way the girl clutched that backpack like her life depended on it. It wasn't just a visit. And before the night was over, he'd be pulled into a dangerous game, one that would test how far he was willing to go to protect them. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. And don't forget to hit subscribe for more stories like this. Let's begin. John Miller had never been one for big celebrations. 42 years old, a former firefighter turned reluctant homebody after the accident, he'd learned to keep life simple, just him, his 10-year-old son, Ben, and a store-bought chocolate cake from the discount bakery. The wheelchair sat where his boots used to wait by the door, and the living room smelled faintly of candle wax and takeout. Ben was mid-laugh at his own joke about how many candles they'd need when the doorbell rang. It was summer in Willow Creek, the kind of quiet July night where even the crickets seemed lazy, and John wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened the door, there stood Claire from next door. They'd exchanged the occasional hello over the fence, nothing more. Tonight she held a small, neatly wrapped box in both hands. Beside her was a girl about Ben's age, thin, freckled, clutching a faded backpack to her chest like it was full of gold. "Happy birthday," Claire said, a little out of breath. "We, thought we'd stop by." Ben's face lit up. "Come in. We've got cake." John hesitated just long enough to notice the way Claire kept glancing back toward the street, and how the girl, Emma, he remembered, never loosened her grip on that backpack. But he smiled anyway, rolling back to make space. In a town where not much happened after sundown, an unexpected knock could be the start of almost anything. The living room felt warmer with 4 people in it. Ben was quick to cut the cake, making a show of giving the largest slice to Emma. She smiled politely but didn't take off her backpack, even when Claire gently suggested she leave it by the couch. John rolled into the kitchen to grab more plates, keeping half an ear on the chatter. Claire's voice was polite but thin, like she was trying to sound relaxed. Every few minutes, her eyes flicked toward the front window. When the first round of fireworks cracked somewhere across town, Ben grinned, but Emma jolted hard enough to nearly drop her fork. John noticed. The second pop had her gripping the backpack straps, knuckles white. "Not a fan of loud noises?" he asked lightly. She shook her head without meeting his gaze. Claire's hand came down on her daughter's shoulder, firm but not unkind. "She's just tired." They shifted the conversation to safer ground, school, favorite movies, until Emma bent over to reach a napkin and her bag tipped just enough for the zipper to slide. Something inside caught John's eye, a corner of an old photograph, and under it, the crisp edge of official-looking papers. In the brief flash before she yanked it shut, he saw the photo, Claire, younger, with a man in military uniform. John's mind ticked back to last week's news, a grainy image of that same man under the headline "Wanted for questioning, illegal arms trafficking." He kept his expression neutral, but inside, the easy birthday mood was gone. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a neighborly drop-by. Ben and Emma had moved to the floor, competing over who could stack the tallest tower of mismatched checkers. Claire hovered at the edge of the room, her smile brittle. John caught her glance, a quick, pointed look toward the back door. He nodded slightly and followed her out onto the porch. The warm air carried the smell of cut grass and distant barbecue, but Claire's voice cut through it low and urgent. "I'm sorry for just showing up like this," she began, eyes scanning the quiet street. "I wouldn't have if I didn't think we were in trouble." John leaned back in his chair. "Trouble?" She hesitated, then exhaled hard. "You saw the news last week. The man they're looking for, Daniel Ross, he's my ex-husband." John's mind replayed the headline. "The arms trafficking story." Claire nodded, voice trembling. We've been hiding for months. I thought we were safe, but tonight I saw a black sedan circle the block 3 times. Same make and color he used to drive. I panicked. I figured, you might know what to do. John's hands tightened on the armrests. Why me? Because I've seen you, she said simply. The way people treat you like you're stuck in that chair, but you're always paying attention. I need someone who won't panic. From inside, a sudden pop from another firework made Emma squeal. Claire flinched, but John kept his gaze on her. You're saying he might be here now? I don't know, she whispered. But I know I can't run forever. John took a slow breath, his firefighter instincts stirring, the same ones that once made him run toward danger instead of away. All right, he said at last. Then we stopped waiting for him to knock. Back inside, John found Ben and Emma still absorbed in their checker tower, the TV murmuring in the background. Claire lingered by the window, eyes restless. John wheeled into the hallway, pulling his old cell from the desk drawer. The contacts list was short, most numbers he hadn't dialed since the accident, but one name stood out, Henderson. Retired detective, former firehouse volunteer, the kind of man who answered calls at odd hours. He hit dial. Henderson, came the gravelly voice after 2 rings. It's Miller, John said quietly. Got a situation brewing on my street. Possible surveillance, maybe worse. Need a set of eyes who knows how to keep his head down. There was a pause. You expecting a fire, or just smoke? Not sure yet. But the woman involved, her ex is Daniel Ross. A low whistle. I'll be there in 20. Lights off, keep your guests inside. John ended the call and rolled back into the living room. He caught Claire's questioning look. Friends coming by, he told her. Knows how to spot a tail. If your ex is sniffing around, we'll know. She swallowed, relief and fear tangling in her eyes. Thank you. John didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted to Emma, laughing softly with Ben, her backpack still glued to her side. He knew whatever papers were in there could answer more than a few questions. But for now, the priority was simple, make sure the black sedan, if it was out there, never got the chance to park in front of his house. Henderson's arrival was as subtle as promised, no headlights, no knock. 1 minute the street was empty, the next a silver pickup slid into the far end of the block and went dark. John met him at the porch. Henderson stepped into the shadow, bald cap pulled low, eyes scanning the quiet street like he was reading a map only he could see. 2 blocks down, he murmured. Black sedan, tinted glass, engine running. Driver's alone, but he's not here for the view. Saw him adjust something on the dash, probably a dash cam or long lens. Claire appeared in the doorway, her voice tight. That's him. Henderson shrugged. Could be one of his guys. Either way, sitting ducks if we stay put. John thought fast. We need to move you without him knowing where. Can we pull a blackout? The old detective's mouth curled into a grin. Easiest trick in the book. Kill the power on your block, his camera feed goes blind. You've got 15 minutes of confusion to disappear. Claire's hand tightened on Emma's shoulder. Where would we go? I've got a safe garage on the south side, Henderson said. No one finds it without my say-so. You can hole up there while we figure next steps. John nodded. Do it. As Henderson slipped back to his truck, John turned to Claire. Grab what you need. Essentials only. Once the lights go, we're ghosts. Her eyes searched his for a moment, maybe for doubt, maybe for reassurance. Whatever she saw, it was enough. She headed for the bedroom without another word. The first flicker of the blackout came at 9:47. A hum cut from the street lamps, and the house fell into shadow, the only light the faint glow from the fireworks still blooming miles away. Time to move, John said. Claire and Emma were ready, a duffel bag over Claire's shoulder, Emma's backpack clutched tighter than ever. Ben had been briefed in hushed tones. He treated it like one of his dad's old fire drills, silent and serious. Henderson's pickup rolled up without lights, stopping just short of the driveway. John wheeled forward, transferred into the passenger seat with practiced efficiency, then helped Ben climb in behind him. Claire and Emma slid into the back. "Hold on," Henderson muttered, pulling away slow at first, then accelerating once they were clear of the block. Through the rearview mirror, John caught a glimpse of the black sedan. Its headlights flashed on a beat too late. Henderson took a hard right, then 2 quick turns through narrow residential streets, weaving them into darkness. The ride was tight and silent, every corner carrying the risk of a tail. Emma leaned against her mother, eyes wide but dry. Claire's gaze stayed fixed out the window, jaw set. Finally, Henderson eased into an unmarked alley, stopping before a steel garage door. He tapped a code into a side panel, and the door groaned upward to reveal a dim, cluttered space, tool benches, oil drums, and a small office tucked in the corner. "Home, for now," he said. "No one will look here." John exhaled for the first time in 20 minutes. The first move was over. The next, was figuring out how to end this. The garage smelled faintly of motor oil and dust, the kind of place where stories could hide for decades. Henderson locked the steel door behind them and threw a heavy tarp over his truck. "Phones off," he said. "If they're tracking, we make them deaf." Ben and Emma were settled on a worn couch in the corner, given a couple of old comic books to keep their minds busy. Claire paced near the workbench, arms crossed, the tension in her shoulders like coiled rope. John rolled closer. "We've got a roof over our heads, but I can't help you if I don't know what we're protecting." Claire hesitated, then looked toward Emma. "Show him." The girl froze. "Mom." "It's okay," Claire said gently. "He's not going to hurt us." Slowly, Emma set the backpack on the bench and unzipped it. Inside was the photograph John had glimpsed earlier, but beneath it lay a thick folder stamped with federal seals, and a small, battered flash drive taped to the inside pocket. John reached for the photo, Claire beside the man from the news, smiling stiffly at some formal event. "This was before I knew what he was doing," she said. "Before I realized half his business trips weren't business at all." "And the folder?" John asked. "Proof," she said. "Bank records. Shipping manifests. Enough to bury him if it gets to the right hands." She glanced at the flash drive. "That's a backup. If he finds us, he'll take it all." Henderson, leaning in the doorway, gave a low whistle. "Lady, you're not just hiding from an ex. You're holding the match that could burn his whole operation down." John met Claire's eyes. "Then we'd better make sure it's lit at the right time." Henderson cleared a spot on the workbench, pushing aside a box of rusted wrenches. "We can't just walk this into the local precinct," he said. "If Ross has contacts in law enforcement, and guys like him always do, it'll vanish before the ink's dry." Claire hugged herself. "So what do we do? Keep hiding forever?" "No," John said firmly. "We take it to someone who can move faster than he can. My old captain's brother works with a federal task force. He's clean, and he owes me a favor." Henderson nodded slowly. "Good choice. But you'll need to get the files to him without drawing a tail. That means decoys, staggered movement, and no straight routes." John glanced at Claire. "You up for a little misdirection?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I've been running for months. I can handle one more sprint." They mapped it out on the bench. Henderson would leave first in his truck, carrying a dummy folder to bait any watchers. 30 minutes later, Claire and Emma would ride with him to a friend's house across town. Meanwhile, John would get the real evidence to the contact, with Ben in tow, so no one suspected anything more than a dad taking his kid on a late-night drive. When the plan was set, Henderson locked the garage again. We do this right, Ross won't know you're gone until the feds are already knocking on his door. John's eyes found Claire's. This ends tonight. She nodded, but he saw the flicker in her gaze, the one that said she wasn't just afraid for herself anymore. At exactly 11:15, Henderson's pickup rumbled out of the alley. From the garage's narrow window, John watched the taillights fade, carrying their decoy into the night. 15 minutes later, it was John's turn. Ben sat in the passenger seat of John's old van, a backpack of snacks on his lap. "We're just going for a drive, right?" he asked. "Right," John said, forcing a smile. "Just a drive." The real folder and flash drive were wedged inside the van's spare tire compartment, a spot no casual searcher would think to check. Claire stood by the door, her hand briefly squeezing John's. "Be careful." He met her eyes. "You too." The streets were mostly empty, save for the occasional night bus or a lonely jogger. John kept to side roads, doubling back twice before easing onto the freeway. In the rear view, nothing followed. At a quiet rest stop outside town, a black SUV idled under a flickering light. A tall man in a windbreaker stepped out, salt and pepper hair, posture that screamed federal training. "Captain Miller," he greeted with a firm handshake. "Your brother says you don't call unless it matters." John popped the van's rear hatch, retrieving the hidden folder and flash drive. "This will put Daniel Ross exactly where he belongs. Keep Claire and her girl out of the fallout." The agent's eyes sharpened. "Understood." He slid the items into a locked case, gave a single nod, and returned to his vehicle. By the time John pulled back onto the freeway, a weight he hadn't realized he'd been carrying began to lift, but only slightly. Ross wouldn't go quietly. John and Ben rolled back into the alley just before dawn. Henderson was leaning against the garage door, a thermos in hand. Claire and Emma were inside, asleep on the couch, the duffel bag still at their feet. "Your guy get it?" Henderson asked quietly. John nodded. "It's in the right hands now." The day passed in uneasy waiting, the hours dragging. Then, just after sunset, Henderson's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, smirked, and handed it to John. A headline blazed across the news site: "FBI arrests Daniel Ross in multi-state sting." Beneath it, a photo of Ross in handcuffs, eyes downcast, the black sedan visible in the background. Claire read over John's shoulder, her breath catching. "It's over," she whispered, though her voice trembled like she didn't fully believe it. John turned to her. "You and Emma are safe now. You can start over." She met his gaze, a small, grateful smile breaking through. "Not just because of the evidence, but because you didn't turn away." Ben and Emma, oblivious to the weight of it all, were already plotting which cake to bake next time. Henderson chuckled, shaking his head. Later, as the four of them sat on the porch of John's house, power restored, night air calm, Claire leaned back in her chair. "I came here thinking you were the safest person on the street because you couldn't run. Turns out, you were the one who stood your ground." John looked out at the quiet neighborhood. "Sometimes sitting down makes you see more clearly." And for the first time in a long while, he believed it. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more stories that stay with you.